Well, you know the old saying, 3 strikes and you're out. Well, apparently it took the Democrats 4 tries, but they got him. They finally got him. They got the admission of the quid pro quo, and now they can go after the president. Or can they? Gordon Sondland, the anticipated witness, the guy who's the ambassador to the European Union. Another one of those individuals that believes that they, more than the president, are actually looking out for the best interest of the United States. In his testimony today, he gave those words that the Democrats have been salivating, waiting to hear in this entire process. Yes, the president committed quid pro quo. He was not going to give Ukraine any help unless they agreed to do what he demanded.
Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes. Mr. Giuliani conveyed to Secretary Perry, Ambassador Volker, and others that President Trump wanted a public statement from President Zelensky committing to investigations of Burisma and the 2016 election. Mr. Giuliani expressed those requests directly to the Ukrainians, and Mr. Giuliani also expressed those requests directly to us. We all understood that these prerequisites for the White House call and the White House meeting reflected President Trump's desires and requirements.
So here we go again. This inference of, well, if they didn't make a public statement referring to Ukraine about the fact that they were investigating the corruption of Hunter Biden and Burisma, that they were going to reopen that and re-examine their meddling in the United States elections, well, there was going to be absolutely no aid given. Here's the problem. Did they ever make such a public announcement that they were going to reopen the investigation? No. Did they get their money? Yes. So, Mr. Sondland, what is your point in all of this?
As I testified previously, Mr. Giuliani's requests were a quid pro quo for arranging a White House visit for President Zelensky. Mr. Giuliani demanded that Ukraine make a public statement announcing the investigations of the 2016 election, DNC server, and Burisma. Mr. Giuliani was expressing the desires of the President of the United States, and we knew these investigations were important to the President. In the absence of any credible explanation for the suspension of aid, I later came to believe that the resumption of security aid would not occur until there was a public statement from Ukraine committing to the investigations of the 2016 elections and Burisma, as Mr. Giuliani had demanded.
Oh, you assumed that's what Rudy Giuliani was up to. Now let me lay this out for you, because obviously nothing is going according to the Democratic script, and you know they have had to regroup, because even yesterday with Vindman up there, you only call me Lieutenant Colonel, that got backlash by everybody, including the liberal media. I mean, even the progressive alternative liberal media went after that, like, who does this little dweeb think that he is? And I mean, you know that Saturday Night Live is going to tear into this guy over that. And that doesn't play well with the American people. The little guy in the military uniform. Look, I got my Cub Scout uniform on and all of the badges that I've won. You have to respect me. That's not going to play well. And it was obvious that he's, what's the nice way, the diplomatic way to say this? Lying, making stuff up. It's a he said, she said scenario. And the fact that there are plenty of people who seemed to know Mr. Vindman, including his direct supervisor over in Ukraine, that this guy has a problem on his hands. He's constantly usurping the chain of command and taking things and usurping authority for himself, and that he has not been granted, which is why he was asked the question. You do understand that the president's in charge of foreign policy? Yes. He doesn't actually follow that, but he knows the right answer to give. So that didn't play well. So here they are now, day 4 of the public hearings, week 2. They needed that home run. They needed something to get the anchors over at Airport Terminal TV, which used to be known as CNN. They needed to get something to fire up the mainstream media again on this narrative. So in walks Ambassador Sondland, and he tells them what they have been waiting breathlessly to hear. Yes, President Trump wanted a quid pro quo. There it is. They got the president now. Except when you actually break it down, what is it that he, along with the others, have alleged? The quid pro quo hinged around Ukraine would have to publicly announce that they were going to investigate the Bidens or they would not get the money. Ukraine never made any such announcement, and they got the money. They got their money. But as this progressed, and while he was under Democratic questioning, he hung himself. Literally, he hung himself. And he hung Adam Schiffless out to dry.
That you had a phone call with President Trump that you relayed to both Tim Morrison and Ambassador Taylor, whose accounts of that conversation you do not dispute, where President Trump confirmed that President Zelensky needed to publicly announce the investigations, or otherwise the obvious implication of the stalemate would be that the aid would not be released. Is that correct?
Again, the implication, I did not hear directly from President Trump that the aid would be held up until the statement was made. I did not hear those words.
But you agree that with whatever Mr. Morrison and Ambassador Taylor testified to about the conversation you had with President Trump. Is that right?
Remind me again. I don't want to misspeak.
Well, you just said you have no reason to dispute their accounts based on their detailed notes.
Were they saying that I told them that President Trump said that the aid would not be released until the statements were made? Because I said repeatedly, I don't recall President Trump ever saying that to me.
Okay.
I think what they said, if I could just finish this line of questioning, was that President Trump was adamant that President Zelensky himself had to clear things up, quote, clear things up and do it in public, unquote. So what they related was, although President Trump claimed to you there was no quid pro quo, he also made it clear to you in that call that President Zelensky had to, quote, clear things up and do it in public. You don't have a reason to dispute? That's what
I don't have any reason to dispute the clear things up and do it in public. What I'm trying to be very clear about was President Trump never told me directly that the aid was tied to that statement.
But in that same conversation you had with him about the aid, about the quid pro quo, he told you that President Zelensky had to, quote, clear things up and do it in public, correct?
I did not have a conversation with him about the aid. I had a conversation with him, as referenced in my text, about quid pro quo.
Well, the quid pro quo you were discussing was over the aid, correct?
No. President Trump, when I asked him the open-ended question, as I testified previously, what do you want from Ukraine? His answer was, I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky to do the right thing. That's all I got from President Trump.
Shiftless is absolutely speechless now. He's trying to lead him to say, yes, the president demanded quid pro quo, that if they wanted the aid, they were going to have to give in to his demand of reopening a hearing and making that public in a major way so that the world would know. They didn't do those things. They got their money. And now you have Sondland saying, well, the president never said that. The president never said that. Here we go. We've got a guy trying to now put this this thread through the eye of a needle that's even smaller than a micro hole. And what he's trying to do here is insinuate the president wanted quid pro quo, but he doesn't dare perjure himself and say that he said it outright, because he doesn't know if when he's talked with the president, met with the president, if other people have listened, if there's an actual file somewhere, which is why he's so careful to keep saying, well, the president never used those words. The president never said those things to me. In fact, the president was clear. He wanted nothing in return. You have to understand that Adam Schiff, who's not real bright to begin with, has got to be sitting there just shaking his head and saying, wait a minute. First you're telling me that is exactly what he meant. Now you're saying that's not what he meant. What are you saying? Now, Sondland thinks he's being clever and cutesy. You know, he's part of that whole intel community. He's part of that whole justice system, that whole swamp. He is a swamp dweller. And understand, at the end of the day, this is no more complicated than this. These people think they alone know what's best for America, and that every American president up to Trump has followed what they had to say. Even somebody as liberal and progressive as Barack Obama. What is it that has progressives beside themselves today and looking back on the Obama years? He wasn't progressive enough. He wasn't liberal enough. He moderated once he got into the White House. Did he moderate, or did he simply do what the George Bushes have done and the Bill Clintons have done, that once you get there, you let the so-called career professionals, who sometimes are Democrat and sometimes they're Republican, apparently their political views are like bisexuality. I know there's no nice way to say that, but that's what they are. They swing both ways, Democrat or Republican, because ultimately they're not about the party system, they're about the they system. They are part of that oligarch elite that think they and they alone run the country, and how dare you actually vote the way you want to vote. No, nay, that's not allowed. And other presidents have just sort of let them set the policy when it comes to how we're going to interact with Russia, how we're going to interact with this country, that country, etc. Donald Trump goes in there with his own ideas and his own ideals, and they don't like it. And of course, Donald Trump not knowing who he can trust because he's surrounded by people who hate him and never Trumpers and career politicians who even as ambassadors aren't doing and carrying out the Trump policy for foreign policy. So yeah, he sends Rudy Giuliani over there. That's not about backdoor channels. If it's a backdoor channel, then every president is guilty of that. George Washington secretly negotiated peace with England that had the Democrats been in power at that time, they would have impeached him for it. So the president sets the agenda, and the deep state, this is why they hate him, this is why they want him gone, this is why the coup never stops. And Devin Nunez, in his opening remarks today, which were absolutely powerful, he just sort of goes through the laundry list of what it is the Democrats have tried and failed, yet they keep right on trying.
In March 2018, after a year-long investigation, Intelligence Committee Republicans issued a 240-page report describing in detail how the Russians meddled in the 2016 elections and making specific recommendations to improve our election security. Denouncing the report as a whitewash and accusing Republicans of subverting the investigation, the Democrats issued their own report, focusing on their now debunked conspiracy theory that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia to hack the elections. Notably, the Democrats vowed at the time to present a further, quote, comprehensive report, unquote, after they finished their investigation into Trump's treasonous collusion with Russia. For some completely inexplicable reason, after the implosion of their Russia hoax, the Democrats failed to issue that comprehensive report. We're still waiting. This episode shows how the Democrats have exploited the Intelligence Committee for political purposes for 3 years, culminating in these impeachment hearings in their mania to attack the president. No conspiracy theory is too outlandish for the Democrats. Time and time again, they floated the possibility of some far-fetched malfeasance by Trump, declared the dire need to investigate it, and then suddenly dropped the issue and moved on to their next asinine theory. A sampling of their accusations and insinuations includes these. Trump is a longtime Russian agent, as described in the Steele dossier. The Russians gave Trump advance access to emails stolen by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. The Trump campaign based some of its activities on these stolen documents. Trump received nefarious materials from the Russians through a Trump campaign aide. Trump laundered Russian money through real estate deals. Trump was blackmailed by Russia through his financial exposure with Deutsche Bank. Trump had a diabolical plan to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Trump changed the Republican National Committee platform to hurt Ukraine and benefit Russia. The Russians laundered money through the NRA for the Trump campaign. Trump's son-in-law lied about his Russian contacts while obtaining his security clearance. It's a long list of charges, all false, and I could go on and on and on, but I'll spare you for these moments.
And if that wasn't enough, Nunez hit him with this.
The Democrats have zeroed in on an anonymous whistleblower complaint that was cooked up in cooperation with the Democrats on this very committee. They lied to the American people about that cooperation and refused to let us question the whistleblower to discover the truth. Meanwhile, the Democrats lash out against anyone who questions or casts doubt on this spectacle. When Ukrainian President Zelensky denies anything improper happened on the phone call, the Democrats say that he's a liar. When journalists report on Ukraine election meddling and Hunter Biden's position on the board of corrupt Ukrainian companies, the Democrats label them conspiracy theorists. When the Democrats can't get any traction for their allegations of quid pro quo, they move the goalposts and accuse the president of extortion, then bribery, and at last resort, obstruction of justice. The American people sent us to Washington to solve problems, not to wage scorched earth political warfare against the other party. This impeachment is not helping the American people. It's not a legitimate use of taxpayer dollars, and it's definitely not improving our national security.
Bada boom, bada bing. And again, Sondland hung himself. Yes, the president absolutely wanted quid pro quo. No, the president didn't want that. He never used those words. He wanted nothing. He hung himself. And he hung Adam Shiftless. And this should get interesting now. We know there's enough of what he did say early on. It gives CNN and PMSNBC cover and something to spin. But again, behind closed doors, this isn't sitting well with Nancy Botox Pelosi and the rest of the suits in the DNC. Because Sondland said Trump never used the phrase quid pro quo. In fact, he was insistent he wanted nothing in return. Boom. And there it is. Hey, that's it for this rant on this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. Give us a big thumbs up and a like. Share this video to your social media platforms. Help us get the word out as we continue to be shadow banned by YouTube.